Imagine, right now, the police has found your body. In exactly the same way as you are. Sounds weird, but this whole story is weird too. What would the detective think? How you look like? What clothes are on you? Maybe what's in your pocket? And the conclusion he's going to make based on the items found in your pocket. Here lies an unknown man who was found at Somerton Beach, 1st December 1948.
There were two questions. Who was he, and how did he die?
For 70 years, the police has been trying to find out the real owner of this grave. For 70 years, professionals around the world have been trying to understand the mystery of his death. And finally, in 2022, he has been identified. But until today, this still remains a mystery on how this man died.
Officially, this case is still open.
Now I will tell you all the details about this case and you can decide yourself who was the man of Somerton Beach. November 30, 1948, in Adelaide Town, Australia, a man is slowly dying on the beach. It's 7:15. A local businessman, owner of a jewelry store, John Limes, and his wife Helen walk along the beach on a Tuesday evening, and quite close on their way, they notice a man lying on the beach. He's lying on the sand with his head up to the wall. The couple pays attention to the fact that this man is dressed very formally and elegant, which is not quite the way we dress ourselves for a beach day, but for some reason he's lying on the sand. When they passed nearby him, his hand slowly raised up and immediately back down. Looks like he wanted to say something to John and Helen. However, the couple did not pay attention to him as they thought maybe he is drunk, and they continued their evening walk, but John and Helen didn't know that they're missing the last chance of saving this man's life. It's 7:30. Another young couple walking nearby, and they sit on the bench right above the lying person. And he didn't react to them in any way. Probably he's fallen asleep. They also notice that this man is not wearing the right clothes for a beach day. And before they walk off the beach, they notice this man's leg is moving. Probably this was the last move of his life. 1st December at 6 a.m. The same jewelry guy went at the beach for a swim. And every morning he meets there a friend of him, and for some reason, this guy is always looking at the wall. Also, two people with horses are around that lying man. John is approaching them and sees that this man is dead. 6:45 a.m. The police arrives and they are starting to examine the body of the stranger for any signs of fight or bruises, but nothing has been found. He's carefully dressed, his clothes are clean and dry. Also seems that he never been walking around the beach or sand, as his shoes are perfectly clean, like brand new. But he had a half-lighted cigarette on his chest. Means he had to sit there for a smoke and he had a heart attack. Or maybe he had too much alcohol and this happened. Well, that's what police thought. And so the body is being taken to the morgue, and there, coming out a bunch of strange details. Specialist performs a body autopsy on the pathologist's table. He looks in his early 40s, 5'9" foot tall, with an European appearance, brown eyes and ginger hair. His face didn't have any particular signs related to where he's from or religion. He looked healthy and had calf muscles, which relates more to ballet dancers or middle distance runners. They notice his toes formed a wedge shape, which looks like he often uses shoes with sharp toes. At this stage it looks like he's a dancer, but these stranger clothes are very stylish and quite warm to wear them, as it's been a heat wave at that time of the year. He had no hat, which is unusual for 1948, and so he's a good looking man. He doesn't seem to be drunk, and the most weird part is, all labels from his clothes have been cut off. In his pocket has been found a never used train ticket from Adelaide to Henley Beach, a used bus ticket to Adelaide, chewing gum, 2 combs, and had a pack of Army Club cigarettes. But inside this pack he had a different brand of cigarettes, a much more expensive one, branded Kensitas. And the weird part is, he had no wallet, no cash, and no ID. The pathologist who performed the autopsy on this man estimated that he died at around 2 a.m. Means that the witnesses, when they saw him, he was still alive. But still, what's the reason this man died? Conclusion of the pathologist, as he said, the heart has a normal size and there are no signs of cardiovascular system disease. So no heart issues here. Blood vessels of the brain are easily identified, indicating the flow of blood to them. There was congestion of the pharynx, and the esophagus was discovered with whitening superficial layers of the mucosa with a patch of ulceration in the middle of it. The stomach was deeply congested, as was the small intestine. Blood mixed with food in the stomach. Both kidneys were congested. The liver contained excess blood and the spleen was about 3 times its normal size, as well as his pupils were smaller than normal. The man's last meal was a pasty, traditional British pastry, eaten 3 to 4 hours before his death. And so the pathologist concluded, I am quite convinced that death could not have been natural. Poison I suggested was a barbiturate or a soluble hypnotic. So, the stranger from Somerton Beach has been killed. The cause of his death is poison, but where from? As no traces of poison or any unnatural substances has been found in his body. The pie also hasn't been poisoned, and looks like this man has been fighting for his life for quite long. At first he tried to raise his hand, and then also moving his leg. After all, this man seems like he suffered a lot before his death. And at the morgue, after the autopsy, has been taken a picture of the Somerton Man. Pictures of him has been released straight all over the media, in hope that maybe somebody will recognize him. His fingerprints has been taken by the authorities, but nothing has been found again. A daily local newspaper is being released, and on the 3rd page, under the title "Dead Man Found Lying on Somerton Beach," they saying, a body was found on Somerton Beach opposite the crippled children's home yesterday morning, believed to be of E.C. Johnson. Who the hell is this Johnson? Why him? Anyway, on 3rd December Johnson checked himself into a police station to declare that he was alive. Same day the news published a picture of the dead man on the front page to gain as much engagement as possible. On December 4, Adelaide police are making a statement. The man's fingerprints are not on the South Australian police records. The dead body was involved, and at the morgue they tried to invite as many people to see him, in hope that somebody maybe will recognize him. And here, the real madness began. A man claimed to have had a drink with the person resembling the dead man at a hotel in Glenelg on November 13. During their drinking session, the mystery man supposedly produced a military pension card bearing the name Solomon's. Another 2 people identified the body as a 63-year-old former woodcutter, Robert Walsh. A 3rd person also saw the body and claimed that this is Walsh, but it turns out it's not him, as Walsh had a particular scar on his body. Another 2 Darwin men thought the body is a friend of theirs, and others who thought it was a missing station worker. Detectives from Victoria believed the man was from there because of the similarity of the laundry marks to those used by several dry cleaning firms in Melbourne. Following publication of the man's pictures in Victoria, 28 people claimed to know his identity. By November 1953, police announced they received 251 statements from members of the public who claimed to met or known him. Literally the whole country has been trying to guess who's the dead man, and after 6 months, the first clue has been discovered. On 14 January 1949, staff of the Adelaide rail station discovered a brown suitcase with its label removed, which had been checked into the cloakroom at 11 AM on 30 November, same day of his death.
Now this is the case that we found in the Adelaide railway station.
And so, let's see what's inside. A red dressing gown, a size 7 red pair of slippers, underpants, pajamas, shaving items, a light brown pair of trousers with sand on the cuffs, a screwdriver, a table knife cut down into a short sharp instrument. This is definitely made on purpose. A pair of scissors with sharpened points, an orange wax thread, exactly the same one as it's been used to repair a line in a pocket of the trousers the dead man was wearing. Looks like the suitcase is definitely his, as well as all the clothes that found in the suitcase had their labels removed. And the police found a weird thing, the name T. Kane on a tie, same name Keane on a laundry bag, and again Keane on a t-shirt. We got two possible options here. First, the owner forgot to remove them and this is his name. Second option, the one who cut off all the clothes labels left this name on purpose. He knew that this name has nothing related to the owner of the suitcase, and that's why he probably wanted to confuse the police. But who is this T. Kane? After a quick research, they discovered that not long ago a man named Thomas Kane is missing. He was a sailor and all the stuff found in the suitcase, like scissors, knife, screwdriver and such, could possibly be his.
He would most likely have been third officer on board the ship.
Investigators decided to show the body of this unknown man to Thomas Keane friends. However, they categorically refuted this version, as following the body found on Somerton Beach, it's not Thomas Keane. A further research concluded that not T. Kane was missing in any English-speaking country. Police checked incoming train records and believed that the man had arrived at the Adelaide railway station by overnight train from either Melbourne, Sydney or Port Augusta. After all, looks like he bought a train ticket to Henley Beach, departing at 10:50 AM. For some reason, the unknown man decides to shave, but at some point he discovers that the bath facilities which supposed to be open on that day, they are closed. And for this reason he went to adjacent city baths, and this took him about 30 minutes, and probably that's why he did not board. He immediately checked his suitcase at the station cloakroom and took the bus to Glenelg Beach. Cedric Stanton Hicks, professor of physiology and pharmacology at the University of Adelaide, testified that a group of extremely toxic and unknown drugs is the reason for this man's death. He determined the actual composition of these drugs, but never told anyone. Well, almost anyone. He gave to Professor Cleland a piece of paper with the names of two drugs which was entered as Exhibit C18, and the problem was they couldn't release it to the public as they were too easily procurable by the ordinary individuals from a chemist without the need to give a reason for the purchase. Hicks mentioned that the only fact not found in relation to the body was the evidence of side effects or vomiting. In doctor's opinion, he should be having them as a poison side effect. A new statement took place as such. He's been poisoned and then carried at the beach to die. This explains why his shoes are absolutely clean, no traces of vomiting on the sand or signs of convulsion. I did not mention that around the same time as the inquest, a tiny piece of rolled up paper was found in a fob pocket sewn within the dead man's trousers.
And a small piece of paper on which were printed the words Tamám Shud.
Tamám Shud, what that even means? A tiny piece of paper that looks like ripped off a book. Public library officials called in to investigate this text, and of course, they quickly found out the meaning of this text. This tiny paper has been torn off the last page of a rare New Zealand edition book, Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. The meaning of the word Tamám Shud translates as ended or finished. Rubaiyat is a collection of 4 books, and the theme of Rubaiyat is that one should live life to the fullest and have no regrets when it ends. And so, the man of Somerton kind of been ready for his death. This book had been very popular in 1948, but none of this book had the same font text as the one on paper. In June 1949, they finally decided to bury the body. And for some further investigations, a plaster cast was made of the man's head and shoulders.
This made the skin sweat into the...
And on 14th of June, the body of the unknown man was buried in Adelaide West Terrace Cemetery. But they did it in a different way, as they knew in the future they might need to exhume the body for further investigation. And they were not wrong, as they've written this on the actual grave plate. Here lies the unknown man who was found at Somerton Beach, 1st December 1948. Same time, police has been actively in search for that book, and they even published a photo of that paper on media all around the world, a newspaper. And somehow, a person reacted. 23rd of July 1949, a man shows up at the police station and gives them a book of Omar Khayyam. And there, on the last page, they see a torn out piece of paper. This is the rare edition of 1941 from New Zealand, and the owner said a quite strange story about how this book ended in his hands. End of November 1948, about 1 week before the body was found, a local doctor parked his car at the Somerton Beach. He left it unlocked and windows opened as well. He comes back on evening time with one of his relatives, and this guy went on the back seat and saw a book. He thought this book belongs to the doctor, and so he left it there. And the doctor later on saw the book and thought this book belongs to his relative. But in reality, someone just walked by, saw this car windows open, and threw the book right on the back seat. And for all this time, this book has been stuck in his car glove compartment. He mentioned that has nothing related and knows nothing about the connection of this book and the unknown man until he saw a statement on the newspaper. I mean, whoa, that's unbelievable. So police is going ahead to investigate this book, and at the back of this book were found 5 lines of weird text symbols, with the second line being struck out. The experts had a really long and tough time in trying to crack this code, but no one could understand the meaning of that. In 1978, following a request from ABC Television's journalists, Department of Defense and cryptographers analyzed the handwritten text, and they say this: it will be impossible to provide a satisfactory answer. If the text is an encrypted message, its brevity means that it had insufficient symbols, from which a clear meaning could be extracted. After all, the Department of Defense wasn't able to understand it. And now, inside the book cover, at the back, they found 2 written phone numbers. They ring the first one and seem to be the phone number of a local bank, so nothing special. And when they ring the second number, they're getting into somebody new. The owner of that number is a 27-year-old nurse, Jessica Thompson. Police heading straight to her house. They're realizing that it's only a 5 minutes walk between her house and where the body was found. The girl didn't want to talk to the police. She mentions that she doesn't know anyone and has no idea what are they talking about. She behaved quite strange and she didn't really want to give any answer to them. And she also doesn't know how her number made up on that bookcase. Then she asked the police not to keep any records of her name or release any details to third parties, as it will be embarrassing and harmful to her reputation to be linked to such a case. Then she was shown the plaster cast of the dead man by D.S. Lin, and she also said she could not identify this person. According to Lin, he described her reaction upon seeing the plaster cast as she was like surprised or shocked, to the point of giving the appearance that she was about to faint. And the only things she said was about something happening to her on the day of this man's death. On that day, someone knocked on her door. Somebody has been looking for her, but Jessica wasn't home, so that man went to her neighbor instead. And so from this neighbor, she knew somebody has been looking for her. Probably this was the actual Somerton Man, and that's all. In the meantime, the police is trying to understand how her phone number made up on that book, and Jessica told them that she gifted a book like this to one of her friends, a lieutenant named Alf Boxall. Looks like we're getting there with this story. So he is the actual owner of this book, Alfred. Police been searching for this guy and they discovered that he's from Sydney. When police arrive at his house, he opens the door, alive and well.
But the police eventually found Mr. Boxall alive and well and living in Sydney.
They told him the whole story why they are looking for him. Then Alfred goes into another room and comes back holding the exact same book. That's the actual book that Jessica gifted to him. And also, inside this book, it was a message written by her. Alfred said that when he was 39, he met a 24-year-old nurse in Sydney when she gifted him that book. And since then, they never met again. So whose book been within that man's car? It's unclear, but the most important, why on that book was Jessica Thompson's phone number. Looks like we're not getting there yet. It's kind of an endless labyrinth. Police been searching for the same things and investigating this whole story from scratch. And somehow, an interesting detail shows up. Alfred Boxall, he was serving at the water transport section during the World War II. And now as the most wanted part is, who's the man of Somerton? But before that, we need to dig deeper into the context. 1948, end of the World War II, and the world started to fight for its future. Right at the start of this Cold War, people had fear in front of its own opinions. And first thing that came on Australian residents' mind, the Somerton Man is a spy. Labels are cut off the clothes, a knife, sharp scissors in the suitcase, an ideal body physique, a weird sort of cause in that book. And the most important part, the mysterious death, poisoned by an unknown substance. In 1994, the Chief Justice of Victoria, John Harper Phillips, studies the evidence and concludes that the poisoning was due to digitalis. What's interesting, 3 months before the body was found, on August 16, 1948, with the same substance has been poisoned the Secretary Assistant of the Treasury in the US. And specifically, he was poisoned when he was accused as a spyman for the Soviet Union. The investigation lasted for long years, even after the case has been already closed. But the question, who is the Somerton Man, is being asked quite often. Weird things started from the grave of this unknown man. Years after the burial, flowers began appearing on the grave. Somebody, periodically, has been bringing flowers at this grave. Police started the investigation as they needed to know who is actually bringing flowers, and they finally see somebody. That was a lady mid-age. They couldn't detain her as she only brought flowers, and all what the law enforcement could do is talk to her. The lady confirms that she doesn't know anything about him. She only heard his whole story, and they believed her as there was nothing else to just not trust her. June 1945, 3 years before the death of Somerton Man in the suburb Sydney, has been found a 30-year-old man's body. This is Joseph Marshall, brother of a Singapore politician. An important detail, on his body is lying an open book, one of the Rubaiyat Omar Khayyam collection, and his death reason declared as poison. August 15, 1945. The investigation of Marshall has been closed, but after 2 weeks, the woman that they had as a witness on this case has been found dead in her own bath. Another crazy detail here. Jessica gifted the Rubaiyat book to Alfred Boxall in the Clifton Gardens Hotel, that is located 1 kilometer away from the place where Marshall died. A year later, after the unknown man's death, another crime happened, specifically on the same actual place. 6th of June 1949, Neil Macri from Adelaide mentioned that on his own dream, he saw the actual place and he had to go there. Sounds crazy, but okay. Not too far from Somerton Beach has been found Kate Waldemar. He lies in quite bad condition with a black bin nearby him, and in that bag was his son, Clive. This father and son has been missing for the last 4 days. The father has been taken to a hospital, and following a medical examination, they transferred him to a mental hospital. The son has been already dead for over 24 hours, Same way as the Somerton Man's case, they wasn't able to identify the reason of his death, and so they declared his death was unnatural. Who attacked this father and his son, still no one knows. But after they've been discovered, with child's mom, Roma Magnusson, started to happen some weird things. She returns back home on a late evening and notices that she's being followed by a car. She started to walk faster, and so the car as well. She's very close to her house while this car stops right in front of her. She sees a man with a mask on his face, and he tells her, "Keep away from the police," and kept driving away. And since then, every time she's going out, she notices that she's being followed by somebody. But why is she being followed? Roma mentions that her husband knew who is the Somerton Man, and he actually really participated in his body identification. He mentioned that the dead man was Carl Thompson, who had worked with him in Renmark in 1939. And finally she reported her situation to the police, but after some time she went sick and needed medical attention. Soon after, the mayor of Port Adelaide received 3 anonymous phone calls threatening him if he stuck his nose into Magnusson affair. And this is the end of the story. The Somerton Man case remains unknown for over 50 years, and in 2007, everything changes. At the laundry, professor of the Adelaide University, Derek Abbott, while waiting for his clothes to wash out, he reads some articles on the newspaper about unresolved cases in Australia, and he seemed to be very interested in this case. First thing he paid attention on was the cigarettes of a different, much more expensive brand than the actual pack he had. The poison has never been identified, so here we are. Looks like somebody replaced his cigarettes. Even on his chest he had half cigarettes when his body was found. Derek shared the handwritten codes to his university students, and in the process of cracking the code was concluded it was most likely that each letter was the first letter of a word. So this encryption definitely means something. The code format corresponds to the quarters format of the Rubaiyat book edition, and probably that's a sort of encryption, and the key is the actual book. This explains why the book has been found on another dead body. Derek suggested that the actual key figure of this whole story was the nurse, whose phone number been found on the book. She definitely knew something. Derek was looking for her for a very long time, and finally, he found a picture. This picture he showed to the expert that made the plaster cast of the unknown man, as he personally saw her in real life and probably he remembered her face. And the expert confirmed, this is her, the nurse. Then the professor found out her name, Jessica Thompson. He then went to her house and found out she's no longer alive. Derek started to learn her biography. She born in 1921, then in 1942 she studied as a nurse, but never finished it. Then she relocated in Melbourne, and in 1947, a year before the Somerton Man was found, she changes her surname. Actually, her name was Harkness. By why she changed her surname, no one knows, but there are some assumptions. There's a story she was hiding her pregnancy before marriage. On that time, everyone will be talking about it. The woman gives birth to a boy, Robin, but who's Robin's father? Someone assumed is Alfred, someone said is the actual man found at the beach. Derek Abbott started to investigate Robin, but there was nothing to reveal as he died in 2009. Professor began to study Robin's biography, and he revealed that he was a ballet dancer, a famous one. Maybe the mother gave her son to a ballet school as she knew that her father had a passion for dancing. If you remember the body of Somerton Man and his pronounced high calf muscle, the anatomy professor of Adelaide looked at the ears of the dead man and notices that his ear is inverted. The ridge is much lower down, and it is his cavum that is smaller than his simba, so it is reversed compared to a normal ear. And he stated that less than 1% of the population have this feature. In May 2009, Professor Derek came to a conclusion that the Somerton Man had hypodontia, a rare genetic disorder, on both lateral incisors, a feature present in only 2% of the general population. And what's interesting, that Robin had exactly the same features. He had the same ears and the same jaw structure. Here the story gets absolutely crazy. Derek Abbott is looking for Robin's child, and he found his daughter, Rachel, and he marries her. Yep, this is such an unexpected turn. They married. In 2013, some new details comes up. Jessica Thompson's daughter, the woman named Kate Thompson, gave an interview to the Australian TV program named 60 Minutes, where she said a lot of interesting facts about her mom. It turns out that the nurse that somehow her phone number ended up on the book, the one who used to live just 5 minutes from where the body was found, she could speak Russian. The daughter mentions that she heard her while speaking on the phone in Russian with somebody. Also, she was interested in communism, but never disclosed. How does she know Russian? According to her daughter, the Somerton Man is probably a Russian spy. Kate Thompson said that her mother lied to the police when she was interviewed by them, but she disclosed everything to her daughter. She told her, "This is way too serious to be known by the police force." Kate mentioned that her brother Robin has a different father and definitely is the man of the Somerton Beach, and therefore Rachel's grandfather. Later on, the experts made a new 3D face model of the man found at the beach. This has been made as the picture and the plaster cast are taken after the clinical pathology, so there might be some face deformities. On this model, we see the exact copy of his face. This case still continues until 2018, when the state of South Australia had a new Attorney General, and she finally, after 70 years, granted the permission for his body to be exhumed. And so the exhumation was carried out in May 2021. With the technology available nowadays, I think it's finally possible to identify this man by DNA test. Now, we only have to wait. May 19, 2021. Finally the body is exhumed and the DNA test has taken place, and the system shows up 6 different names, and one of them was the unknown man. He only needs to understand whose. The experts investigated each one biography and saw that only one of them had no evidence of the death date. And finally, after 70 years of investigation, we can determine who is he. The experts got the name of the Somerton Man. He is Carl Webb, also known as Charles. The investigators even found a descendant of Carl Webb, and this is the great-grandson, and DNA test confirmed it. And so, who's this Carl Webb? Born in 1905 in Melbourne and was the youngest of the 6 brothers. His father Richard, from Germany, he married an Australian woman and opened a bakery. At his young age he worked as a mechanic, and he was married to a woman called Dorothy Robertson. But in 1947, a year before death, they divorced, and later on Robertson relocated to South Australia. And it is believed that Carl has been looking for his ex-wife in South Australia. One of Carl's sisters has been married to a man named Thomas Keane, and so the suitcase probably belongs to his brother-in-law. Another detail is that Carl loved horse racing, and so probably these codes are just some marks from horse racing or gambling. He also loved poetry, and here's why he had this piece of paper, Tamám Shud. Many of these details can actually have a logical reason here, but only one remains unknown: his death. Who and why killed Carl Webb still remains unknown. We really don't know a lot about his biography, but you can decide yourself. Maybe he was just looking for his wife, a normal person who loves horse racing and poetry, an American or British sailor, or maybe a spy man in favor of Soviet Union. You have the right to decide yourself who was the Somerton Man.